best we can.
Monsters under your bed.
President of the United States.
Monsters stuck in your head. We
Yes,
are
we can.
stuck in your head.
President of the United States.
These flames comes this bear on fire. It was the most beautiful and terrible thing I've ever seen. Sooner or later, the fire's gonna come knocking in our hometown. I want y'all to breathe in this beautiful vista, because you're never gonna be able to look out into the wilds and see that pure beauty again. This ain't the greatest job in the world. I don't know what is.
What is that?
Fire's threatening homes and people's lives. I want Granite Mountain.
There it is. Your hot shots.
The fire gets past our line, it goes to our town.
Burn over seconds away. It's gonna feel like the end of the world. As long as you can breathe, you can survive.
We're gonna take the fire head on and save our town.
Y'all are heroes.
No one could be prouder of his boys than I am of you guys.
Margaret Brennan joins us now. She's at the White House. I share the question that was raised in that room, Margaret. What storm is the president referring to?
The White House is refusing to clarify what the president meant, and if you play out that full tape, you had reporters repeatedly say to the president, "Sir, what storm? Which storm? Are you talking about Iran? Are you talking about ISIS? What are you referring to?" It's a very unusual statement, and it's one that raises a lot of concern, not necessarily the people in that room, but here in Washington and around the world.
Well, people lost everything here, but they have their lives and they got out, and that's amazing. Wilson Walker with me now, and Wilson, you saw some amazing stories because you were right in the middle of this firestorm, and it was a firestorm.
And I smelled it from my home in San Francisco. That's when I jumped in the car and headed north, and it was truly an incredible thing to be in the middle of.
It was truly an incredible thing to be in the middle of.
Laser at a power of 1 watt, and if you don't want to use your energy to strike your match, you can just hold it in the beam of light.
A 1 watt laser can light a match. Imagine then the power of a 500 trillion watt laser. That's exactly what they've built here at the National Ignition Facility in California, where engineers have just finished constructing the laser to end all lasers.
In an interview aired by CBS, Dr. Kaku admitted that recent homemade hurricanes have been the result of government weather modification programs in which the skies were sprayed with nanoparticles and storms then activated through the use of lasers. It says in an interview below, Michio discusses the history of weather modifications before CBS crew stop him in his tracks. The High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, HAARP, was created in the early 1990s as part of the Ionospheric Research Program jointly funded by the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA. According to government officials, HAARP allows the military to modify and weaponize the weather by triggering earthquakes, floods, and hurricanes.
They were talking about climate change yesterday, and now we're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right. Lasers now could one day manipulate rain and
This was from the military news. It's about aircraft laser-borne weaponry, a Boeing YAL-1. And look for the blue flashes, folks. That's what we saw in the skies. Those are the lasers being used, that they're pulsing the electromagnetic fields of plasmic energy that they excite with the winds in order to direct the direct field. See the blue? These are caused by these laser beams. And we'll get into the whole thing about lasers and when they're created here in a little bit. But look at the blue, folks. That's what many comments, and I saw it as well. We saw blue sparks or flashes in the sky. And that's what they were, is these little blue beams of laser energy right there. See it? That's what we saw. So this is proof pretty positive that this was a laser-directed energy weapons used on the Northern Cal fires here. But here's some before and after photos. This is in the coffee district here, which we're talking about, that got attacked. Notice they're completely obliterated. And here's the area of the map, the sections where the fires first started. And this evacuated areas of Tuesday afternoon is what we're going to get into here in a minute. All right, so this is Santa Rosa, the area. This is pictures similar to the ones I took the other day in the coffee district area. Again, you can see the ridge fires coming up. Take a look at this, folks. See the stone block wall? It's all gone, folks. The heat had to be enough to melt the wall. Columns were melted. Wrought iron steel melted. No glass. 2,600 degrees to melt glass. No glass. Look at the stone walls. Imagine how hot the heat had to be just right away. There was no buildup of the fires. It happened right away. These things were torched. And let's look at some melting temperatures. Metal, aluminum, 1,220 degrees Fahrenheit, 660 degrees Celsius. Wrought iron, 1,482 to 1,593 Celsius, 2,700 to 2,900 degrees. Steel, carbon, 2,600, around the same wage, 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit. What is the melting of point of glass? Glass melts at between 2,600 and 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit, and I didn't see any glass at all in any of the cars, any of the homes. There was no glass at all.
There's absolutely nothing left, and that's what we're seeing again here. And this is becoming a growing trend, guys. There's no explanation for it. I want to show you a couple of things here that should really be visible to the people with eyes to see. Here's this neighborhood before. And I want you to look, you guys. There's absolutely nothing left. You don't see any part of any of the structures anywhere. This isn't possible. There's something else going on here. Something else going on here. The entire building. Everything's gone but the trees. One washing machine. But where are the granite countertops? Where are the glass doors? Where's any of the metal framing? Where's the bricks? Where's any of the stuff that held these houses together? And why isn't there any rubble? But the tree is still standing, and the grasses are still here. But the cars that were left have no glass. They're all smashed to pieces. Look at this, the garbage cans. Come on, guys, all the garbage cans are here. But look at the cars, look at the condition of these vehicles. Look at this. This is all smashed and bent. And look at the twigs on the ground. These things should have caught on fire. How come there's pine needles and stuff all in the path? Why isn't there anything standing whatsoever but the trees? This is supposed to be a forest fire. How come the forest didn't catch on fire? Not even the tree branches. Look at, there's just twigs and stuff everywhere. Why did the twigs not burn? But every single solitary piece of 2x4 that built these houses is standing. I mean, isn't standing, it's gone. It's all disappeared. There's no aluminum siding, there's no bricks, there's nothing.
Emergency. All right, so let's get into directed energy weapons, or DEW. They've had this technology for a very long time, folks. They just don't tell us about it. The beginning of was the Allies and Axis conducted basic research and studies into primitive directed energy weapons before World War II. The Allies and the Axis were partners. British scientists calculated electronic systems of the time could not generate the power necessary for a death ray. That's not true. Nikola Tesla had the death ray already. That's what Tesla technology was developed in 1905 to 1910. During the Cold War, U.S.-Soviet Union together studied the possibility of creating particle beam weapons which fire streams electrons, protons, neutrons, and even neutral hydrogen atoms. The kinetic energy imparted by a particle beam stream destroys the target by heating the target's atoms to the point that the material literally explodes. Now, if there's aluminum from chemtrails on the ground, in the soil, and the trees and what, there's your combustion. These weapons were considered for both land and space-based systems. Because beam strength degrades rapidly as particles react with the atoms in the atmosphere, it requires an enormous power plant to generate a weapons-grade beam. How about 1 trillion watts of power focused, as Michio Kaku was saying on Today's Show a couple weeks ago. So the theoretical underpinnings was Albert Einstein, 1917, folks. Promising laser devices is the free electron laser, uses rings of magnetically confined electrons whirling at the speed of light to produce laser beams that can be tuned up and down the electromagnetic spectrum from microwaves to ultraviolet energy. They produce continuous beams or short, intense pulses of light in every spectrum from infrared to ultraviolet. And we all saw blue lights around here. There was blue, as you'll see in the United States Air Force laser test. They have blue circles, and that's what we saw. When a laser beam strikes a target, the energy from the photons in the beam heats the target to the point of combustion or melting, and it travels at the speed of light. They're well suited for use against moving targets, blah, blah, blah. The number of shots a laser weapon can produce is only limited by its power supply. Depending on the laser, that means that weapons can have an almost endless magazine of laser bursts. So the electro laser is a type of electroshock weapon that is also a directed energy weapon. It uses lasers to form an electroconductive laser-induced plasma channel. A fraction of a second later, a powerful electronic current is sent down this plasma channel and delivered to the target, functioning overall as a large-scale, high-energy, long-distance version of a taser electric shotgun. The current is fed into the plasma channel created by the laser beam. The laser beam rapidly heats and ionizes surrounding gases to form plasma. The plasma forms an electrically conductive plasma channel. So the ether or aether, the air, is electromagnetism. By exciting the air, exciting the ions, it creates the plasma fields, and then the circulating winds excite the atoms and the molecules to create the conductive atmosphere for the laser to be fired. This is what they did. Because a laser-induced plasma channel relies on ionization, gas must exist between the electrolaser weapon and its target. If a laser beam is intense enough, its EMF field, electromagnetic field, is strong enough to rip electrons off air molecules or whatever gas happens to be in between them, creating plasma similar to lightning. The rapid heating also creates a sonic boom, but they don't have to have a sonic boom, but people did hear explosions. So as electrolasers and natural lighting both use plasma channels to conduct electronic current, electrolaser can set up light-induced plasma channels for such. Direct atmospheric lighting to terrestrial collection stations for the purpose of electric power generation. This is what I did a piece on about the lasers being used with panels in the sky down to conductive solar panel fields in the desert for space-based energy. As a weapon to make a thunderhead deliver a precise lightning strike into a target from an aircraft, the aircraft and laser can be compared to a triggered spark gap. In a relatively minor amount of initial output from the laser allows a large amount of energy to flow between the cloud and the ground. Got it? Manufactured, directed energy weapons used for weather war terrorism. It's all right here.
To broadcast the entire Earth, it takes 2 kilowatts, 2 hair dryers. Now a microwave oven uses 1,000 watts or 1 kilowatt. Here's the damage 1 kilowatt can be done by somebody when they take a magnetron out of a microwave and turn it into a ray gun. This is just a small example of a low-tech weapon running on 1,000 watts. Then you have these things here, these huge towers of death. Now each row in this tower, an array, or a set of dishes or rectennas or whatever you want to call them, is connected to a cable with a maximum power output of 300,000 watts, or 300 kilowatts. That's 300 microwave ovens. We based that conservative estimate based on the gauge of the cabling that's running up to one of these arrays. They're estimated at 300,000 watts per cable. Those aren't fiber optic cables running up to those arrays. It's a thick copper gauge transmission line quality cable running up those towers. Now, if there's 10 cables, that's like 3 megawatts of power. And these cables are out there to output power to the magnetron, not for data transfer. That's an important point. These cell phone towers are weaponized. There's no other reason to have this much power running up the cables. It isn't for data transfer. Now, FCC regulations limit normal transmission per array to about 400 watts. To put that into perspective, 1 watt from your phone can go 25 miles to the nearest tower. A 1,000 watt magnetron on a stick can blow shit up. And these towers have a 300 kilowatt power line running up to each rectenna. And who knows, there could be an amplifier at the top of these towers that steps up the power even more. The point is here, ladies and gentlemen, is that these companies like Lucent and Google could turn up the juice at any time and nuke a town. They could nuke the entire country without any warning, without anybody being able to protect themselves. They could cook them like a boiling frog in the middle of the night. This infrastructure is not only in place, it's built up with multiple levels of redundancy. Every big city has thousands of these death towers. And all that needs to happen is for an AI from Google or whoever to come in and nuke everybody at once and take over. Who out there remembers that movie Terminator? Well, Google doesn't have to send a Terminator to every door or launch a nuclear strike. It can just turn on these cell phone towers to maximum and cook everybody within the city limits within an hour. And then just send in the Terminators to
Agenda 21, which just so happens to be the title of Glenn Beck's new dystopic novel. Billed as more frightening than anything Orwell could have envisioned, Beck's Agenda 21 paints a disturbing picture of America following the implementation of the United Nations Agenda 21, which is actually a real-life UN initiative, though not nearly as nefarious as Beck would have us all believe. The book, which of course is a novel, it's fiction, it's made-up stuff. The tagline reads, "This used to be called America, now it's just the Republic. There is no president, no Congress, no freedom. There's only Agenda 21." On the internet, you can watch a movie trailer made specifically for the book, featuring grizzled Americans lining up on the streets in a post-Soviet style winter landscape reeking of desperation, waiting for tiny morsels of food to be parceled out by the authorities. Reminiscent of both Nazi concentration camps and the Book of Revelation. Everyone's forehead is tattooed with identification numbers. And in an homage to Sarah Palin's death panels, one scene in the trailer depicts an emaciated, scraggly-haired old man loaded onto a conveyor belt and sent into a burning furnace. Of course, this is all fiction. Whether you like him or not, Beck has made a fortune off sensationalism and more recently televangelism. And this book will tap into a wellspring of paranoia on the fringe right that undoubtedly is going to make a lot more money for Mr. Multimillionaire Glenn Beck. But whether Beck really believes in this depicted Agenda 21 future for America isn't all that important. What's important is that a lot of other powerful people have bought this hook, line, and sinker. To them, there's nothing fictional at all when it comes to Agenda 21. For example, on October 11th of this year, the Georgia State Capitol building hosted a 4-hour briefing for Republican state senators on the issue of Agenda 21. It was emceed by a man named Field Searcy, who, according to Mother Jones, is a local conservative activist whose Tea Party leadership was revoked after endorsing birther and truther conspiracy theories. Searcy told the Georgia Republicans, and later told me on my radio show, that Mr. Obama is using a mind control procedure known as the Delphi technique to slowly condition Americans to submit to the control of the United Nations Agenda 21, which will, according to Searcy, force mass migrations of Americans out of the countryside into the cities while handing over control of our rural lands to an international one world.
How do you fix this? Abandoned homes, foreclosures weighing down neighborhoods. It's America's continuing foreclosure crisis, and it's playing out in cities just like this one, Orange, New Jersey.
All right, so let's blow the skirts over your guys' heads by showing you how this works. This is part of the Agenda 21. I highly recommend a book by Rosa Corey, who lives here in the area of Santa Rosa, wrote a book called Behind the Green Mask about Agenda 21. She chronicled the Santa Rosa area, and look what gets targeted: Santa Rosa, Sonoma, Napa. All right, so here's the areas of evacuation on Monday. This is where the fires first started. Big one in Santa Rosa, Napa, Sonoma. This is when it first broke out. All right, now check this out. Now here's the evacuation area from Santa Rosa. Now notice the streets: Fountain Grove, Chanate, Montecito. Notice where these were evacuations on the initial thrust. Now I want to bring your attention over to this document here. And this is a document that was sent by a lady named Kathleen. It's the City of Santa Rosa Department of Planning and Economic Development Citywide Summary Pending Development, June 2017. And if you go back and forth between these two, you will notice these streets are the exact same. Here's Chanate, here's Pacific, Mendocino Avenue, here's Highway 12. Isn't it interesting that the exact areas that they're evacuating are the exact areas that are zoned for Agenda 21 development? You cannot make this stuff up. This is from Kathleen, who wrote, "The maps of the fires and the planned or already approved housing projects are identical, nearly identical. I think that our government and the developers who put them in office are the arrogance and think that no one will notice. If anyone does point this all out, being able to prove it is another issue." Now they've taken this site down since she posted it. She did a screensaver, so we have it still. "All the insurance companies are set up at the shelters to process claims. Pay everyone off fast, calm them down, and put money towards the new home. When they find out how much additional money it will cost and how long it takes to navigate the building permits process, buying a ready-made brand new home will be an easy decision, even if it means a much smaller one on a smaller lot. It kills me when I think of all the people who are homeless and who, if they have the means and determination to rebuild, will not be able to have anything like the homes they lost, even if they have unlimited funds, because of the absurd building codes that are being put into place thanks to the UN Agenda 21. Fireplaces won't be allowed. Setback requirements are changed. Building height requirements. Green engineering design requirements. And what do you think after these fires are going to do, folks? They're going to add to that. And other arbitrary codes that were deliberately created to make a building or residence needlessly frustrating, time-consuming, and very expensive for developers. How convenient that everyone who just recently lost a home will be able to buy a ready-made stack and pack residence in a nice but much smaller planned development with their insurance money, if they get any. There are plenty of even smaller apartment options will be there. What about all the burned down properties? People will be glad.
Museum of Modern Art think they might have the solution, and believe it or not, it involves building in the streets.
This is an experiment to look at what happens if you get rid of streets, and we create a pedestrian city.
The plan by architects Hilary Sample and Michael Meredith is on display in an exhibit called Foreclosed: Rehousing the American Dream.
We're not necessarily saying it's going to fix everything, but the idea that it provokes a kind of new discussion and conversation.
Their idea: fill the streets with housing and office space, make it pedestrian friendly, and eliminate the tax burden of upkeep on the roads. Looking at life after the foreclosure crisis, the exhibit reimagines how we live.
It's not sufficient to fix subprime, globalize who holds the debt, and go back to building McMansions that take us 3 hours to drive to.
There really is no such thing as a typical American suburb. This phenomenon expresses itself, it manifests itself quite differently in different parts of the country.
Curators Barry Bergdahl and Reinhold Martin challenged architects to reimagine 5 suburbs across the country.
All of them lie within metropolitan areas that are growing. There's opportunities in these decaying suburbs.
For example, picture Kaiser, Oregon as a city powered by its own methane dome. It's creative, but how is it a solution to foreclosures?
The show, I should say, in general, is not trying to solve the mortgage crisis. That's for the banks to sort out. We're saying, since we also have learned from it, that the way we build is part.
Here's the evacuation area over here, Santa Rosa evacuation area. Here's the identical map of where they want to rezone everything. And if we scroll down, here's all the properties, and you see conditional use, design review major, and here we go again. Here's the same roads: Piner, Guerneville, West College Avenue, and this is the pending development on the other side of the freeway. Same exact stuff: College, Pacific, Fulton, right where they want to redesign everything with design reviews. Oh, how conveniently a middle of the night, out of nowhere fire with 2,000 degrees plus temperature Fahrenheit. Look at this map. This is on the east side. This is Hone Avenue, Yulupa. Again, it's just a coincidence, folks. Coincidence theory. This is the area, Yulupa down in here, part of the evacuation area. How convenient that the redevelopment area coincides perfectly with the Santa Rosa development plan, Sebastopol Road, Stony Point Road, all in the evacuation sites. You cannot make this stuff up. This was planned, organized well in advance. Geoterrorism, folks. And now we got the movie coming out about the firestorm coming out the same day as Geostorm. Same, and the president saying, hey, we're in for a storm, the calm before the storm. They tell us what's happening. It's up to us to wake up and be the change.
I want you to listen to this video. I know it's not going to pick up the audio. Like, I can hear it, and I don't know how to get it to you guys in its raw format. But when I play this audio, you guys, if you're on my computer, if you're listening to it from my computer, it sounds like 3D, like a 3D jet going over your head. Okay, now maybe that is how propane tank lets off the sound of gas, but it happens. And it just sounds really bad. So I'm going to let you guys listen to this because this is worth noticing because there is something very, very strange happening at the Silverado fire down the street, okay? So just listen to this, okay?
It's hard to describe how it is with the wind blowing and how hard it is to function with the smoke. I'm in a relatively safe area, if you could call this safe. So that's the only reason I'm here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I was talking with the firefighters down at the previous fire we were at live about the wind conditions, and everybody was extremely concerned about the wind and how dangerous it is, and I take it very seriously.
Okay, you guys, I don't know what you think about that. Now, he goes on to say, oh, well, that's the propane tanks from behind these buildings. From behind these buildings, which are very far away. This sounded like it was being recorded right over his head. And I don't know. You guys, if you believe the media, you believe the media. I guess that's up to you guys. But I'm going to play this one more time because this happens a couple of times in this video. But it's, I don't know. To me, I don't believe the propane tank thing. I looked on Google Earth and I couldn't find propane tanks, but I'm not a pro on this. And this certainly doesn't sound like the venting of propane tanks. I don't know. I guess I'm just going to play it for you guys and let you decide yourselves. That sounded like something very, very different than the hissing of a propane tank. And I read how they work and stuff. I don't know. I'll just let you guys hear one more time.
It sounds like a jet engine.
Yeah, there's something wrong about that.
And it was just one of the fires tearing through wine country, a scorching wall of flames marching south along the Napa-Sonoma County line.
Get out while you can, I guess.
It's not normal. This is the link, okay? This is the link to the video I just saw, and the reason I'm making this video right now is because you guys need to see. Here's the argument right here.
The metal bent. It's like, I don't know. It's such a complete and perfect burn. There has to be something that bypassed the obligation to have an enclosed space with constant feed of oxygen. Because those are the laws of physics. The laws of physics regulate that metal does not bend and melt, and that you need a certain enclosed space with constant feed of oxygen to create a furnace. And this is like something has created furnaces out of these buildings. This is not normal. This is not a normal fire, guys.
And I point that out because I was looking at the devastation here, where I go through and I show you guys that in an open air fire, you have peak temperatures and then they drop, and you'll see that if you watch this video, you'll go through and you'll see what I'm pointing out, that in order to get this complete dustification of everything, it's as if something turned these buildings into a furnace. Okay, because there's laws of physics that have been defied here. And just to back that up, I want you to look at this video that somebody just sent me a link to. This blows my mind, but this proves my point.
The craziest thing I've ever seen. All right, this is f***ing rad. There's a fire in Shelville, and it's going straight up the middle of a tree. That is the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's hollowed out the tree.
This is not normal, guys. This is not normal. Now, I will explain one thing to you about how microwaves work, and this is critical. The reason you cannot X-ray a tree, and I don't have any of the stuff pulled up to show you this, but the reason you can't X-ray a tree is because trees have a dual density bilayer, which is just a simple way, a complicated way of saying that the bark and the heartwood of the tree are two different densities, and the cylindrical shape makes it so that when the microwave energy or any X-ray or any electromagnetic frequencies, this is why you can't pick up anything on radar in a wooded area, okay? Because here's what happens: there's a unique dual density bilayer of cylindrical shape of the tree, so that when the electromagnetic energy goes into the tree, it ricochets instead of going straight through. It ricochets, and then the energy ricochets on the interior of the heartwood. And what happens is that heats up the interior, especially with microwaves. This is why, like, if you look around your cell phone towers and you see that there's a lot of branches or a lot of trees that have like a saggy bark. I call it like a saggy, like a sock effect. Their bark is kind of like shrunken. A lot of the trees, you'll see the bark is just kind of shedding off the trees. That's what happened when we went from 3G to 4G. The higher intensity of the electromagnetic energy that was being pummeled through the trees on the periphery of the tree cluster. What it did was it accelerates the dehydration in the tree, because the microwave frequency enters into that tree and ricochets instead of going through. That's why you can't take an X-ray of a tree, because the X-rays don't go through the tree. They ricochet on the interior of the tree, which is why this is so significant. The way these fires burned, it's through some sort of an electromagnetic energy that they're pumping through. That's why this tree did not combust on the outside, because that's just how trees work. You can't get electromagnetic energy to go pass through a tree. So that would make 100%. That would make 100% explanation for why this tree is burning on the inside. Something with a great electromagnetic force. I don't know what frequency they'd have to use. I don't know everything about this, but I do know that there's a dual density bilayer, and the cylindrical shape makes electromagnetic energy ricochet on the inside of the heart, on the tree, on the bark, and it dehydrates the heartwood. And now this is just like a complete over the top example, because obviously the tree is burning. But since this is consistent with the fires here, this is not just scorched vegetation here. This is evidence of military grade acceleration of accelerants of fire. Okay.
Looking at a 25 megawatt railgun, able to blow a hole in anyone. 25 megawatts of power, just like your local cell phone tower. Notice the power supply. Railgun, cell phone tower, railgun, 25 megawatts of power, and your local cell phone tower. The FCC limits cell towers to 400 watts per rectenna, yet the cabling here suggests a 25 megawatt power supply, a 25 megawatt maximum burst effect. To put that into perspective, here's what a 2 kilowatt magnetron can do. A 2 kilowatt microwave on a stick. Now just imagine what a 25 megawatt cell phone tower can do. It can cook you while you sleep, a weapon of last resort to depopulate undesirable locations. It's a weapon of last resort in case of an invasion or an outbreak. If they can GMO the food supply, if they can fluoridate the water supply, if they can spray you like bugs with the chemtrail supply, just imagine what they're authorized to do while you sleep. Weaponized cell phone towers have been placed everywhere. They're able to strike small children as they play, able to quietly nuke a population in less than a day. Scientific studies show that a 1-watt cell phone device can start cooking your brain in less than 20 minutes. That's just 1 little watt of power. So ask yourself now, what do you think these 25 megawatt cell phone death towers can do? Rapid sector depopulation, extermination, fast and effective, silent and untraceable, designed to kill without warning. Demand these towers be taken down. Flood your local city council with citizen requests. Get a measure on the ballot. Call the local news. Have them investigate and talk to them about magnetically assisted transfection agents, aka MATRA weapons. Chemtrail fallout plus non-ionizing radiation can have disastrous effects. Electromagnetic pollution doesn't have to be at high doses to kill. It can buzz constantly at low doses and still have the desired Agenda 21 effect.
Monsters under your bed. We are monsters. Oh, we are monsters. Oh.